NASA runs one of the most rigorous psychological screening processes on the planet. They test your cognition, your stress tolerance, your teamwork, your emotional control. Out of thousands of applicants, they pick maybe 10 people, and yet, even after all that screening, astronauts still crack under pressure, still clash with crewmates, still fall apart during long-duration missions, still make decisions shaped entirely by who they are as a person, not just what they know. Because here's what the psychological research tells us, and what NASA learned the hard way. You can train a human to fly to space. Why you cannot train away their personality. It goes with them, every single time. You are also in a closed environment. You also have limited resources. You also have to cooperate with people you didn't fully choose. You also face situations where your automatic reactions, your personality, determine whether things go right or go completely wrong. The only difference between you and that astronaut is altitude. The psychology is identical, and today we're going to map it. By the end of this video, you'll understand three things: why you keep repeating the same patterns under pressure, why your biggest strength is also your most dangerous blind spot, and how to use your personality type to work with yourself instead of against yourself. So what exactly is personality? Here's the cleanest way to think about it. Imagine a spacecraft cockpit. Every dial, every switch, every default setting, that's your personality. Before you even consciously react to anything, your system is already running its pre-programmed configuration. And here's the critical thing. Your personality isn't what you show people when everything is calm. It's what your cockpit defaults to when the alarms go off, when oxygen is low, when someone on the crew says something wrong, when you're 250 miles above Earth and utterly alone. Here's something that genuinely shocked me when I first read the research. A 2020 meta-analysis in Psychological Bulletin found that your personality type predicts job performance, relationship satisfaction, mental health outcomes, and lifespan better than your IQ. NASA knows this. That's exactly why they spend more time testing personality than testing cognitive ability during astronaut selection. Because IQ tells you what a person can compute, personality tells you what they will actually do in the dark, under pressure, with no one watching. And what's true at 250 miles up is true for you right now, today, wherever you're watching this. Here's our mission plan. First, we're going to cover the Big Five, the only personality model actually used in serious research, and yes, in astronaut psychological profiling. Then we'll break down each trait and show you what it's really costing or giving you in real life. Then we get into the shadow side, the parts of your personality that nobody wants to talk about. And finally, the big question, can you actually change? I'll give you the science. It might surprise you. Drop a comment right now. If you were launching on a 6-month solo mission tomorrow, what's the one personality trait you'd be most worried about in yourself? I'll read the best ones at the end. The gold standard of personality science is the Big Five model, OCAN. Unlike Myers-Briggs, which you've definitely seen on LinkedIn, the Big Five is backed by 40 years of cross-cultural research conducted in 56 countries. It's what personality scientists actually use. It's what space agencies use when they're deciding who gets on the crew. OCAN stands for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And here's the key. You don't simply have or not have each trait. You sit somewhere on a spectrum for each one. Think of it like 5 separate dials in your cockpit, each tuned somewhere between low and high. And your unique combination of those 5 dials, that's your personality fingerprint. It's what makes you you, and it's what goes with you everywhere, including into orbit. Openness is your appetite for novelty, complexity, and new experience. High openness astronauts are the ones who sign up for missions specifically because of the unknown. They thrive on discovery. They find routine suffocating. They're the ones who could spend hours floating at the porthole just thinking about the size of the universe. Low openness crew members are the proceduralists. Give them a checklist and they will execute it perfectly every time, no deviations. They're the ones you want when the stakes are highest and the protocol needs to hold. But here's what nobody tells high openness people. That same appetite for the new is why you abandon things, why you start 50 projects and finish 12. In a confined spacecraft, or in your real life, chronic restlessness is not freedom, it's its own kind of trap. Any explorers in the comments who know exactly what I mean? If I had to pick one trait that determines mission success more than any other, it's conscientiousness. This dial measures how organized, disciplined, and goal-directed you are. NASA's own research consistently ranks it as the top predictor of long-duration mission performance. High conscientiousness crew members run their pre-launch checklists twice before anyone asks. They track resources obsessively. They maintain their training schedule even when they're exhausted and the mission is weeks away. Research shows these people live longer, earn more, and have more stable relationships. Low conscientiousness astronauts, and they exist, are brilliant, intuitive, creative under pressure. But they leave the airlock slightly ajar, metaphorically speaking. They rely on instinct where they should rely on procedure. In deep space, that becomes dangerous. And here's the hard truth. Low conscientiousness isn't laziness. It's a neurological configuration. Your brain genuinely prioritizes stimulation over structure, which means you have to build externally the systems that other people run internally. The checklist isn't optional for you, it's life support. Everyone thinks extroversion is about being loud or social. That's wrong. Here's the actual neuroscience. Extroversion is about dopamine sensitivity to social stimulation. High extroverts get a genuine neurochemical reward from human contact. Low extroverts, introverts, get overstimulated by social input and need quiet to restore baseline. On a 6-person space station with no privacy, no outside, no escape for 6 months, this dial is mission critical. Introverts in that environment aren't antisocial. They're running a nervous system that needs silence the way the rest of the crew needs air. And in a world or a spacecraft built for extroverts, they are constantly operating at an energy deficit. What this means for you: if you're an introvert and you feel drained after hours of meetings, group work, open offices, that's not weakness, that's biology. The question is whether your current environment is designed for your nervous system or against it. Agreeableness is your orientation toward others, how cooperative, warm, and conflict avoidant you are. In crew psychology research, the highest rated factor for mission failure in long-duration spaceflight is not technical error. It's interpersonal conflict. Specifically, it's what happens when agreeableness mismatches go unmanaged. Highly agreeable crew members are the social glue. They absorb tension, they smooth conflict before it escalates. But here's the shadow that can crack a mission. Highly agreeable people are catastrophically bad at saying no. They accumulate resentment silently. They agree to extra tasks until they collapse. And when they finally break, it's not a small event. 6 months of compressed silence tends to explode. Low agreeableness crew members are direct, competitive, hard to manipulate, excellent at executing under pressure without needing approval. But they leave a trail of bruised relationships and don't always notice when the rest of the crew has psychologically checked out. There's a myth I want to destroy, that being agreeable is a virtue. Chronic agreeableness is often trauma. It's the pattern that forms when someone learns early that their safety, emotional or otherwise, depended on keeping other people happy. That's not kindness. That's a survival strategy that outlived its usefulness. Neuroticism. This is the one. In astronaut selection, this is the trait that receives the most attention and the most misunderstanding. Neuroticism measures emotional reactivity, specifically how fast and how intensely your system responds to threat, stress, rejection, and uncertainty. High neuroticism people are not weak. They are running a threat detection system that is calibrated to catch things others miss. In deep space, where a missed signal can be fatal, this sensitivity is an asset. In chronic, low-level modern stress, it becomes anxiety. The alarm system cannot tell the difference between an actual emergency and a difficult conversation. The research on neuroticism is both sobering and important. High-end individuals are statistically more likely to experience depression, anxiety, chronic stress, and relationship instability. They are also significantly more likely to catastrophize, to receive a single piece of negative information and extrapolate it into total mission failure. NASA has a name for this phenomenon in long-duration missions: third quarter syndrome. Somewhere around the halfway point, high neuroticism crew members begin projecting forward to all the ways things could go wrong. Their threat detection system, so useful in early mission phases, starts generating false alarms. But here's what I need you to hear if you score high in neuroticism. That same nervous system is also the most empathic, the most self-aware, the most attuned to meaning that exists in the human range. The astronauts who write the most profound accounts of seeing Earth from space, of the overview effect, that total psychological transformation, are almost always high in neuroticism. The system that makes you suffer is the same one that makes you feel things no one else in the room is feeling. You are not broken. You are a high-sensitivity instrument operating in a low-sensitivity world. That's a calibration problem, not a design flaw. Now I want to talk about something that no personality test ever puts in the report. Every single dial has a shadow. Your greatest mission asset and your greatest mission risk come from exactly the same source. The high conscientiousness astronaut who runs every checklist perfectly, also the one who cannot stop working when the mission is over, who lies awake running failure scenarios, who has quietly decided that rest is a form of inadequacy, the high openness explorer who thrives in the unknown, also the one who cannot commit to a single trajectory, who finds the current mission less interesting than the hypothetical next one, chronically brilliant, chronically unfinished. The high agreeableness crew member holding the whole team together, also the one who hasn't told anyone that they've been operating at 40% for 3 months, who will smile through a breakdown rather than ask for help. The emotionally stable, low neuroticism crew member who never seems rattled. Sometimes that's genuine regulation, sometimes that's complete disconnection from their own internal state. The astronaut who says, "I'm fine," every single day, and then suddenly isn't. The goal is not to optimize your personality into something perfect. There is no perfect personality configuration for life or for space. The goal is to understand your specific system well enough to know where you need a co-pilot, where you need a backup system, where you need to stop trusting your autopilot and take manual control. Here's the question everyone eventually asks: can you actually change your personality? The old answer from psychology was no. Personality was considered fixed by your early 30s. What you were, you stayed. The new answer, from longitudinal studies over the past 15 years, is significantly more complicated and more hopeful. Your core temperament, the raw factory settings, is largely genetic. Twin studies consistently show that 40 to 60% of Big Five variation is heritable. You cannot fully reinstall your operating system. You are working with the hardware you were given. But here's what the research also shows. Personality drifts naturally over a lifetime. Conscientiousness increases as you move through your 20s and 30s. Neuroticism gradually decreases. Agreeableness goes up. Your cockpit recalibrates slowly, automatically, just by living. And, this is the finding that matters most, you can intentionally shift any single Big Five trait by roughly 1 standard deviation through consistent behavioral change over 2 to 4 years. Not through mindset shifts, not through affirmations, through action. You do not think your way to a new personality. You fly differently until flying differently becomes who you are. NASA uses exactly this principle. They don't select astronauts who already have perfect psychological profiles. They create environments, training protocols, crew dynamics designed to stretch each person's defaults. They don't try to change who someone is. They give that person new experiences until who they are naturally expands. Which means the most important question is not what is my personality type. It's what default settings am I running right now that I would override if I actually knew I had a choice. There's a phenomenon that almost every astronaut reports after seeing Earth from space for the first time. It's called the overview effect. From 250 miles up, you can see no borders, no countries, no divisions, just this fragile, luminous sphere hanging in total darkness. And something in the astronaut's psychology shifts permanently, not because they learned something new, but because they finally saw what was already true. I want you to apply that to your personality today. Most of us walk through life treating our personality like it's a verdict. High neuroticism, guilty. Introvert in an extroverted world, failing. Low conscientiousness, broken. We judge our own defaults like they're character flaws instead of survival adaptations. But what if you could see your personality the way an astronaut sees Earth, from far enough away to understand the whole shape of it? The anxious crew member who double-checks everything? At some point in their life, missing something was genuinely dangerous. Their alarm system didn't malfunction, it was calibrated for a threat that was real. The agreeable crew member who can never say no? At some point, their belonging was conditional on managing other people's emotions. Their people-pleasing wasn't weakness, it was intelligence in the environment they were in. The low-openness crew member who needs routine and protocol? At some point, predictability was the only thing that made the world feel safe. Their rigidity isn't fear, it's a structure they built to function inside chaos. Understanding your personality type is not about labeling yourself. It's not about fitting into a category. It's about developing enough distance from your own patterns to see the logic inside them. Because when you see the logic, when you understand why your cockpit is set the way it is, something changes. You stop being at war with yourself. And that is when real navigation becomes possible. So here is your mission, not an exercise, not a personality quiz, a real mission. This week, identify one big 5 dial that you believe is running against your mission, just one. And instead of trying to eliminate it or suppress it, ask yourself 3 questions. Where was this dial set and why? What was it originally protecting? And what would it look like to run this same trait in a configuration that serves your current mission, not the one you were on 15 years ago? High neuroticism doesn't have to mean anxiety. It can mean extraordinary emotional depth, the capacity to feel the full weight of things that matter. High agreeableness doesn't have to mean being the crew member everyone relies on until they break. It can mean being the person who creates genuine psychological safety, the rarest and most valuable thing in any environment. Your personality is not your destination, it's your launch configuration. Where you end up depends on how well you understand your own spacecraft and whether you're willing to be honest about which dials need recalibrating. All right, mission debrief, let's lock in what we covered. 1. Personality is your cockpit's default configuration. It's not who you are at a party. It's what your system runs automatically when the alarms go off. 2. The big 5, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, is the only model grounded in serious science, and it's the one space agencies actually use. You sit on a spectrum for each trait, and your unique combination is your psychological fingerprint. 3. Every strength has a shadow. Your greatest mission asset and your greatest risk come from the same dial. Knowing this is not discouraging, it's navigational intelligence. 4. You can change your personality, but only through consistent behavior over time. You don't think your way to a new configuration. You fly differently until the new flight path becomes default. 5. The overview effect applies here. When you get enough distance from your own patterns to understand them, really understand them, you stop fighting yourself. And that's when the real mission begins. Now I want to hear from you. Earlier I asked, if you were launching tomorrow on a solo 6-month mission, which personality trait would worry you most? Drop it in the comments. I read everything in the first 24 hours, and I want to know what your honest answer is. If this video gave you something useful, hit like. It's a small thing from you, but it genuinely helps this content reach the people who need it. And if you're new here, this channel goes deep on psychology, behavior, and the science of being human. Subscribe so you don't miss the next mission. I'm working on a follow-up video specifically on crew dynamics, what happens psychologically when certain personality types are locked in together, which combinations create something extraordinary and which ones implode. If you want that video to exist, let me know in the comments. One last thing before I let you go. Whatever you discovered about yourself today, the dial you don't like, the shadow you recognize, the pattern you've been running unconsciously, don't judge it. You built those defaults for real reasons. Understanding them is the first step to choosing something different. Every astronaut who has ever floated at that porthole and seen Earth from space has said the same thing. It changes everything. Not because space is beautiful, though it is, but because the distance gives you perspective you cannot get from inside. Today, you got a little distance from yourself. Use it well. I'll see you on the next mission.